right now. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now, while you are watching this, your brain is deciding whether tonight's sleep counts, not whether you'll feel rested, not whether you'll wake up refreshed, whether tonight's sleep will do the one thing that no supplement, no crossword puzzle, no memory exercise can replicate. Whether it will flush the toxic proteins accumulating between your neurons before they reach a threshold your brain can no longer reverse. Here's what most people don't know. That flushing process, the one your brain runs every night to protect itself, doesn't happen throughout sleep. It happens during a very specific 90-minute window, a window that most adults over 60 are quietly losing, a few minutes less each year. Not enough to notice, not enough to cause symptoms, just enough that over a decade, the accumulated damage starts showing up in ways people attribute to just getting older. What collapses that window? Not age alone. One specific thing you are almost certainly doing or not doing in the 30 minutes before you close your eyes. Stay with me, because what comes next changes how you think about sleep permanently. 15 years in neurology clinics. The conversation I have most often isn't about medications, it isn't about diet, it isn't about supplements. It's about sleep, but not the version of sleep most people think about. Most people think sleep is rest, passive, the body's off switch. Neurologically, that is one of the most costly misconceptions I encounter. Sleep, specifically a single stage of sleep that peaks in the first half of your night, is the most active repair process your brain runs. More active, metabolically, than most of what happens while you're awake. And the patients who understand this, who actually change one thing because of it, come back different. Not in 6 months, in 7 days. This is the conversation that almost never makes it out of a clinical setting. It should. Let me tell you about a system most people have never heard of. It was only formally described in 2012, which is recently. In neuroscience terms, it's called the glymphatic system. The name comes from two sources, the glial cells that power it and the lymphatic system, which it resembles in function. Here is what it does, in plain terms. It is your brain's overnight cleaning crew. While you sleep, the spaces between your neurons expand measurably. Physically, and cerebrospinal fluid floods through them like a tide. It carries away metabolic waste. Misfolded proteins, amyloid beta, the compound that accumulates in the brains of people who develop Alzheimer's disease. It flushes all of it out through channels along your blood vessels, down into the body's lymphatic system, and away. When this works well, you wake up with a brain that is literally cleaner than it was when you went to sleep. When it doesn't work, those proteins sit, they accumulate night after night. They don't cause symptoms for years, sometimes decades, but they are building, slowly, quietly, without any warning you can feel. Here is what the 2023 review published in Biomedicines confirmed. Glymphatic activity is not evenly distributed across sleep. It is concentrated overwhelmingly in slow-wave sleep, the deep restorative NREM stage, also called stage N3. Not light sleep, not REM, slow-wave sleep. And here is where it gets specific to you. After 60, slow-wave sleep declines. Not dramatically, not all at once, but consistently, measurably, year by year. The 2024 study, published in Molecular Psychiatry, looked at 72 older adults with MRI and sleep monitoring simultaneously. The finding was direct. Reduced glymphatic function tracked precisely with poor sleep quality, and both tracked with reduced memory network connectivity in the hippocampal region. The glymphatic system is not failing because you're aging. It's failing because slow-wave sleep is shrinking. And slow-wave sleep is shrinking in large part because of what you're doing in the hour before bed. That is the central problem. And there is a specific, free, clinically studied solution that most people have never tried. The central villain in tonight's story is not amyloid beta, it's not inflammation, it's not even aging. It's slow-wave sleep deprivation, and it's happening silently, incrementally, in most adults over 60 right now. Slow-wave sleep is when the glymphatic system reaches full operating capacity. It's when the hippocampus, the brain's memory filing system, transfers the day's experiences into long-term neocortical storage. It's when BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein responsible for maintaining and growing neuronal connections, is released in meaningful amounts. Lose the slow wave and you lose all of it simultaneously. The flushing, the consolidation, the neural maintenance. At the same time every night. The 2020 review in PMC on boosting slow oscillations in elderly patients put it clearly. The precise coordination of slow oscillations during NREM sleep drives the synchronization of hippocampal ripples and thalamocortical spindles, the three-way conversation that physically relocates memories from short-term hippocampal storage to long-term cortical storage. When that coordination deteriorates, memories don't transfer, they don't strengthen, they fade. Every single thing I'm going to describe next connects back to this one process. Protect slow wave sleep, and you protect everything downstream. There is one habit, but to understand it, to actually do it correctly, you need to understand the 5 things that are destroying slow wave sleep right now and exactly what to replace them with. Each one feeds the same villain. Each one has a specific fix. You've heard that blue light is bad for sleep. You've probably heard it so many times it's stopped meaning anything. So let me make it specific enough to actually matter. It is not the blue light wavelength alone that damages slow wave sleep. It is the cortisol elevation from visual alertness, the mental stimulation that persists for 90 to 120 minutes after the screen goes off. When you watch television, scroll social media, or read news on a phone after 9 p.m., your brain doesn't simply register light, it processes content, conflict, urgency, emotional weight. Each of those stimuli triggers a low-level cortisol response. And cortisol, specifically elevated cortisol, at the moment your brain is trying to initiate slow-wave sleep, acts as a direct suppressor of delta wave production, the precise brainwave pattern that defines stage N3. The 2023 biomedicine study on glymphatic memory dynamics identified this explicitly. Cognitive arousal in the pre-sleep window is among the most potent suppressors of slow-wave sleep in older adults, because the hormonal regulation that dampens cortisol overnight becomes less reliable after 60. The fix: screens off, not dimmed, off 60 minutes before bed. This is not a light exposure rule, it is a cognitive arousal rule. Your brain needs 60 minutes to allow cortisol to fall below the threshold that blocks slow-wave initiation. Not comfortable, not dramatic, but that 60 minutes is where the habit begins. Most bedrooms in America are too warm. The average American sleeps in a room between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. That range feels comfortable, it feels neutral. It is not neutral for slow-wave sleep. Core body temperature must drop by approximately 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate and sustain slow-wave sleep. Your body achieves this by radiating heat outward through your hands, feet, and face to the surrounding environment. If the room is too warm, that radiation is impaired. Core temperature stays elevated. The slow-wave initiation signal is weakened or delayed. Research from the Journal of Physiological Anthropology has consistently identified the optimal sleep temperature range as 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, the lower end of what most people consider comfortable. For adults over 60, whose thermoregulatory precision is reduced, this specific 3-degree difference between comfortable and optimal is not trivial. It directly affects how quickly and deeply the brain reaches stage N3. The fix: set your thermostat to 65 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit before bed. If that's not possible, use a lighter blanket and put a fan near the door. The goal is to allow your body to radiate heat efficiently so core temperature can fall. Your slow-wave sleep will deepen as a direct result. Most people notice a difference within 3 nights. This one matters enormously, and I want to be direct about it because it is one of the most common patterns I see in adults over 60 who come in asking why they feel foggy in the morning despite sleeping 8 hours. A glass of wine, a small whiskey, something to take the edge off and help you fall asleep. For millions of people, this is simply part of the evening. And it works. In a sense, alcohol does accelerate sleep onset. You fall asleep faster. What it does to slow-wave sleep is another matter entirely. Alcohol metabolizes into acetaldehyde within 2 to 3 hours of consumption. Acetaldehyde suppresses slow-wave activity directly, fragmenting the first half of the night, the half where slow-wave sleep is most concentrated. What you experience is a sleep that looks normal in duration but has had its most neurologically critical stage pharmacologically removed. The 2024 molecular psychiatry analysis of glymphatic function in older adults noted this suppression mechanism specifically. Anything that fragments NREM architecture, including alcohol, sleep medications, and inconsistent sleep timing, disrupts the glymphatic clearance process even when total sleep time appears adequate. You are sleeping 8 hours, but you are not getting the 8 hours your brain needed. The fix: if alcohol is part of your evening, move it to dinner at least 3 hours before sleep. Not elimination for most people. Timing. That one shift preserves the slow-wave architecture that alcohol otherwise dismantles. Magnesium is required for the production and binding of GABA gamma-aminobutyric acid, the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. GABA is what allows the brain to downshift from the alert reactive waking state into the slow synchronized oscillations of deep sleep. Without adequate magnesium, GABA signaling is impaired. The brain struggles to coordinate the neural synchronization that defines slow-wave sleep. The slow oscillations become shallower, less coordinated, less effective at driving glymphatic clearance and hippocampal memory transfer. Studies consistently estimate that 60% or more of American adults are deficient in magnesium, and standard blood tests miss most of it because only 1% of total body magnesium circulates in the bloodstream. The rest is in cells and bone. Your lab work can look perfectly normal while your slow-wave sleep is being quietly starved. The fix: magnesium glycinate, 200-300 milligrams, taken 30 to 45 minutes before the pre-sleep habit I'll describe in a moment. Glycinate, specifically not oxide, which is poorly absorbed and primarily a laxative. Magnesium glycinate crosses the blood-brain barrier efficiently and has a mild calming effect on the nervous system through the glycine component. Give it 3 weeks minimum before evaluating. As always, check with your doctor first if you have kidney disease. This is the habit, not a supplement, not a device, not a dietary change. It's called progressive muscle relaxation, PMR, and it has been practiced clinically since the 1920s, studied in sleep labs since the 1980s, and documented in peer-reviewed research as a direct enhancer of slow-wave sleep in 2022. The Journal of Sleep Research study by Simon et al. In 2022 documented it directly. Subjects who practiced progressive muscle relaxation before sleep showed measurably greater slow-wave sleep duration and slow-wave activity on EEG compared to controls. Not anecdotally. On electrode readings, objectively, more delta waves, deeper stage N3. Here is what PMR actually is: a systematic technique of deliberately tensing and releasing muscle groups from feet to head over approximately 10 to 12 minutes. You tense each group for 5 seconds, hard enough to feel it, not enough to cause pain, then release fully for 15 to 20 seconds, focusing on the contrast between tension and release. That contrast is the mechanism. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest branch, while simultaneously signaling to the brain that the body is physically safe and ready to disengage. Cortisol drops, heart rate slows, and crucially, the neural synchronization that initiates slow-wave sleep begins earlier and sustains longer. For adults over 60 whose autonomic nervous system regulation is less precise, this deliberate parasympathetic activation is not a luxury. It is the missing signal. The nudge the system needs, but can no longer generate reliably on its own. The protocol: lights off in the bedroom or dim lamp only. Lie in bed or sit upright in a chair. Start at the feet, tense for 5 seconds, release for 15 to 20. Feel the difference. Move upward. calves, thighs, abdomen, hands, forearms, shoulders, face. Full cycle takes 10 to 12 minutes. No app required. No instruction needed after the first 2 attempts. Do this 7 nights in a row. Not because it takes a week to learn you'll understand it after 1 session, but because the cumulative effect on sleep architecture builds across multiple nights. By night 4 or 5, most people notice something different about the quality of their sleep. Not the duration, the depth. I want to pause here for a moment, because I realize I've just described 5 changes, and the temptation is to feel overwhelmed and do none of them. So, let me tell you what this actually looks like when collapsed into one evening. Dinner is done by 7. At 8:30, the television goes off, not the room, just the screen. Maybe you read something physical, something without urgency. At 9:45, you take 200 milligrams of magnesium glycinate with water. You've already turned the thermostat down. By 10, you're in bed. You spend the next 12 minutes doing something that feels almost too simple to be real, deliberately tensing and releasing muscles you normally ignore completely. And then you sleep. That's the entire protocol. 12 minutes of intentional relaxation is the load-bearing change in all of this, because without it, the other 4 adjustments help, but they don't solve the underlying signaling problem. They clear the obstacles. PMR provides the ignition. The glymphatic system cannot run its full clearing operation if you never reach the sleep stage that powers it. Everything else in this video is preparation. PMR is the trigger. I think of a patient I saw regularly on Tuesday mornings for almost 6 months. She was 71 years old, retired school teacher. She kept a daily journal, went on walks, ate carefully, didn't drink. Her daughter had Alzheimer's, and the fear behind every appointment was the same one she never said out loud directly, but it was there in every question she asked. She wasn't forgetting names yet. She was forgetting sequences, the middle steps of familiar things, the order she used to know automatically. Her sleep looked fine on the surface, 7 hours, no obvious apnea. She fell asleep without difficulty. When we talked about her actual sleep environment, the picture shifted. Television until 10:30, room temperature at 71 degrees. Never heard of magnesium, never heard of PMR. We made the changes over 2 appointments, and I asked her to try the 1-2-minute protocol for 7 nights and report back. She came back on a Tuesday and said something I've thought about since. She said, "I feel like I got my sleep back, not more of it, the same amount, but it's different now." She wasn't describing grogginess disappearing. She was describing what it feels like when slow-wave sleep is actually happening, when the brain is doing what it's designed to do at night, and you wake up having actually been somewhere deeper than the surface. The question I asked myself after she left that day, how many of my patients had been sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night and calling it sufficient, when what they were actually getting was an extended version of light sleep that was never reaching the stage their brain needed most? I need to say something directly, because the science of glymphatic failure and amyloid accumulation sounds like a sentence. It is not. The 2015 study published in PubMed on slow oscillatory stimulation in older adults showed that when slow-wave sleep is enhanced, even through an external intervention, older adults demonstrated measurable improvements in word pair recall the following morning. The brain responded. The memory consolidation process, even in older adults, even after years of suboptimal sleep, showed a measurable response to slow-wave enhancement. The brain is not a fixed structure. The glymphatic system, when given the conditions it needs, resumes its work. Memory consolidation circuits, when slow-wave sleep is restored, begin doing what they were designed to do. 7 days, not 7 years. 7 nights of 1-2-minute practice, combined with 4 environmental adjustments, is enough to begin observing a change in how your sleep feels, and over weeks and months in how your mornings feel. After 60, the window is still open. The biology still responds, but it responds to specific inputs, not general intentions. You now know the specific inputs. Here is what tonight looks like, all 5 changes, together, in order. 1. Screens off 60 minutes before bed, not blue light filter. Off. The cognitive arousal cortisol spike needs a full hour to clear before slow-wave sleep can initiate properly. 2. Thermostat to 65, 67 degrees Fahrenheit. If that's not possible, lighter blanket, small fan. Your core temperature must fall. Your bedroom temperature is the mechanism. 3. If alcohol is part of your evening, move it to dinner at minimum 3 hours before sleep. The slow wave window is in the first half of the night. Protect it from acetaldehyde suppression. 4. Magnesium glycinate, 200-300 milligrams, taken 30-45 minutes before bed, not any other form. Glycinate. GABA depends on it. Slow wave synchronization depends on GABA. 5. 12 minutes of progressive muscle relaxation, lying in bed, lights out or dimmed. Feet to face. 5 seconds of tension, 15 seconds of release. Feel the contrast. Work slowly upward. This is not a meditation. This is a parasympathetic activation protocol. It is the trigger that initiates what the glymphatic system is waiting for. None of these require a prescription. None of them require a perfect lifestyle. They require you to understand what your brain actually does while you sleep, which you now do. 7 days. Start tonight. Which of these 5 surprised you most? And if you've ever woken up after 7 or 8 hours of sleep still feeling like you didn't sleep at all, I genuinely like you to say so in the comments. Because that experience has a name now, and there is a reason for it that most people never get told. If someone you know over 60 is waking up foggy and attributing it to age, send them this, not because it will alarm them, because it might be the first time someone told them that sleep quality and sleep quantity are not the same thing and that one of them can be meaningfully improved in 7 nights. Subscribe, because the next conversation goes deeper into what's happening inside the hippocampus specifically and what that means for the kind of memory loss most people don't realize is reversible.